Hey, thanks for tuning in. So I'm really excited about this topic that we're going to speak about here today. And this is all about, should I do a Roth IRA or should I put my money in a pre-tax account, right? After tax versus pre-tax. This is a big conversation that we often have with people and wondering, what should I do? What is the best way to approach, and how I should save my money, right? So I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the different tax buckets or where you could potentially put your money, right? And there's three places you can put your money. So don't disregard my artwork. I'm not an artist. I'm a financial advisor. So please, let's look at the content here. So there's three places you could potentially put your money when you talk about retirement planning. You can put it into a taxable bucket. So what's a taxable bucket? A taxable bucket is when you put money into, an area where you have complete liquidity, and any money that you would earn on the money that you have, either what's invested or in the bank or what have you, you're simply going to get a 1099 at the end of the year, and you're going to pay taxes on that money. You're going to include that 1099 on the front page of your 1040 form. This is often a liquid bucket of money. You can always have access to the money whenever you want it, but you pay taxes along the way. And you can put anything you want in this bucket. You can put cash, stocks, bonds, mutual funds. You can put any type of investment you want to put into this particular bucket. The second is called the tax-deferred bucket. The tax-deferred bucket is where your IRAs live, your 401ks live, your 403bs live. And by definition, anything that goes in this bucket is money that you never paid tax on. You often get a tax deduction when you make the contribution. And all the growth of that money grows tax-deferred. The key word here, folks, is tax deferred, right? Meaning that you will pay tax someday, right? So again, most people, and I would say that, people that I talk to, this oftentimes is the biggest bucket for most folks. Why? Because people really enjoy that tax deduction when they put the money in here. The third bucket is the tax-free bucket. Now, what lives in this bucket are like Roth IRAs, Roth 401ks, Roth 403bs, and this is kind of an interesting thing. This is a tax code called 7702. 7702 is a tax code in reference to life insurance. There are some life insurance policies, depending on the design, that the money can grow tax deferred and actually can be utilized tax-free. Now, this is very sophisticated. There's a lot of rules that follow this, but I just want you to be aware it is a way to accumulate and distribute money on a tax advantage basis. So really, these are the three places in which you can house your money. So, as I mentioned, this typically is the largest bucket for most people. So there's a conversation today taking place almost consistently about how do I get my money from here over to here, right? So obviously there's multiple ways of doing that. New contributions, any money that you're contributing, you can contribute to a Roth opposed to here. Now, there are some limitations. There's some rules and regulations that go along with this. But again, you need to be aware of what those are. But there's ways to contribute. And then the other way to get money from your tax deferred to your tax free is transitioning. They call it a conversion, where you convert money from your tax deferred and you put it into your tax free. When you're doing this type of methodology, one thing you need to be aware of, any money that you take out of here is going to be what? Taxable, right? You haven't paid taxes here. So before you can put the money over here, you have to send some of the money to the government to pay the taxes on here. So why is this such a big topic today? Well, in recent times, we go back to 2020, we had some major legislative changes that have taken place, right? The government has essentially changed the rules on how tax-deferred money is being handled. So there's a major wave taking place here in the United States where people are trying to figure out ways to minimize their tax liability as they move into the retirement phase of life. This has become a very, very big topic of getting your money, or at least diversifying your buckets to have balance between your taxable bucket, your tax-deferred bucket, and your tax-free bucket. So again, often asked, well, how do I do this? Or should I do this? And I often answer that question with another question, and I say, it depends. This is a very personal decision, right? And it really is dependent on the purpose of the money in which that you have. Whether you're still in the prime time of your accumulation phase, let's say you're 10 years from retirement, right? So how should you be saving money? Should you be saving it here, 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 or a combination? Again, it depends. Or let's say that you're 1 to 5 years away from retirement. And now you're saying, well, I've accumulated money. Most of my money's sitting here. Is this the best place for my money? It depends. And it depends on what is the purpose of the money. So would it make sense to move money from here to here or what have you? It might, depending on your circumstances. But now let's say that you're already retired. And you say, now, I have this bucket, but I don't really have a lot over here. Should I move money from one bucket to the other? Again, I'm going to answer the question with a question. It depends. And I hate to not answer the question directly, but the reason why I say it depends, because you really have to take a hard look and say, what is the purpose of your money, right? So let's talk about that for a minute. So for example, when you start talking about, well, should I make these changes? Should I go to a Roth? Should I keep the money in the tax-deferred bucket? When I say it depends, you're going to first take a look at, well, what is the purpose of the money? Do you need this money to support your income early on in retirement? Yes or no? If the answer is yes, then oftentimes it may not make sense to make the conversion from here to here. Why is that an issue? Because when you make the transition, what you have to do is you have to pay taxes. Right? Taxes have to be paid. So if you took $100,000 and you moved it to this bucket, $20,000, let's say your tax liability is $20,000, 20%, you're going to have to pay the government $20,000, and then you only have $80,000 to go into this bucket, right? So the key to the success of making this transition is time. Because you need to have the ability for this money to percolate over time so it can grow, so you can basically, hopefully, get back the tax liability in which you have, right? So what you don't want to do is say, okay, I'm going to convert the money to my Roth, and now I'm going to start using that money for income purposes. That would be very inefficient. But if you're someone that says, well, I don't really need my tax-deferred money to support my lifestyle when I first go into retirement, then that's a very meaningful conversation. That, in turn, would probably make sense for you to convert from an IRA to a Roth. But again, it goes back to, it depends on what the purpose of the money is. So the other things that should be considered when it comes time to make conversions, or at least to put money into a Roth versus putting money into an IRA, is what your personal situation is, right? So if you're one that believes that tax rates are going to be lower in the future, then you might not want to have money into a Roth, because that tax deduction that you're getting for the IRA, you're enjoying that benefit, and you believe taxes are going to be lower in the future, so you're going to benefit by this bucket. But if you believe taxes are going to go up, then it might make more sense to make the conversion. The other thing you might want to consider, whether you should do this or not, is based on what your aspirations are for the money. If you're going to leave it to a charity, it might not make sense to do the conversion, because when you leave money to a charity, you're going to leave that money tax-free anyways. Or let's say that your health is deteriorated and you might have high medical expenses. That would be another reason why you may not want to make the conversion or add money to the tax-free bucket, because medical expenses, if you take money from here, you could potentially get a tax deduction for medical expenses here. So it really depends on what you're ultimately trying to accomplish. But you can make a strong argument when it comes to taxable, tax-deferred, and tax-free is balance, right? So balance is critical, because as I said, the government has made major changes to the tax law here in the last 3 years, with the idea that they've really attacked and they focused on money on tax-deferred vehicles, right? So the idea here is that they made it less attractive for the money in this bucket when it comes to estate planning or leaving money to the next generation. The rules are very strict on how that happens, and it becomes a potential tax nightmare for your heirs, whether it be your children or anybody else that you might leave the money to outside of a charity, right? So these are things that you need to consider when you start talking about, this balance between taxable, tax deferred, and tax free. So again, just a little bit of information about the different tax buckets and how you save, and where you can put your money and how you can save money. But the idea here is if you want to be more control of your future from a tax perspective, and you believe that tax rates are going to go up, or you're not really going to need to use your money in these buckets to support your lifestyle, there's probably a good chance and a good argument that you could make that trying to create more value in the tax-free bucket can really benefit you in the future. Again, just a few pieces of information. Hope you find value in this. Again, this is all part of our peak formula to build a tax strategy that makes sense. Again, if you like the information in the video, please share it, please like it, and please follow it. Thank you.